Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Diva. My identification number 2110 7310 and 15. On this video, I would like to tell you about brief history of second language acquisition and behaviorism theory. First, the period of the 1950s 50 can be divided into three phases. The first is on 1950s and 1960. It is a short description of how it was believed that second language were learned at the time. And then the 1970s, it is about how Chomskyan evolution still influence and it's very much felt today. And the last is 1980s onwards. It is about the impact of Chomskyan linguistics has continued to be profound, but ideas coming from other fields have also increasingly significant. Uh, okay, first it is the 1950s and 1960s, and it is like language pedagogy. It called progressive in 1950s. Drew on version of structuralism developed by the British linguist. And then Howard's summary about the learning theory by the expert was the general theory that dominant in mainstream psychology, behaviorism. And first, behaviorism. It is about the language learning is seen like any other kind of learning as the formation of habits. For examples of case is when learning first language, the process is relatively simple. All you have to do is learn a set of new habits as we learn to respond to stimuli in our environment. And when learning second language, we run into the problems. We already have a set of well-established responses in our mother tongue. And next is behaviorism under attack. Chomsky critique views about about Skinner's view because children, when learning second language by imitating based on the Skinner's views, but Chomsky's views that children have an innate faculty that guides them in their learning of language. So Chomsky claimed about the first is the creativity of language. Children do not learn and reproduce by a large set of sentences, but they routinely create or on their own sentence. So the next is given the complexity and abstractness of linguistic rules. So the children give abstract rules for their own uh, for their own sentences that we that they want to speak. And the next is on the 1970s. It is about the first language acquisition. Some stages to the children when learning first language. First is crying on birth, and the next is chewing on 6 weeks, and then babbling on 6 months, and then intonation patterns on the 8th month. and then one word utterances on 1 year, and then two word utterances in 18 months, and then word inflections in on 2 years, and then question negatives in 2 years second, in 2 years third month, 3 months, and then um, rare of complex constructions is on 5 years, and mature speech on 10 years. So the characteristics of first language acquisition is children are the first is children go through some stages, and then the stages are very similar across children for a given language, and and then the stages are similar across languages, and then child language is rule governed and systematic, and then children are resistant and to correction. And the next is second language learning, or the birth of error analysis. Error analysis, this showed clearly that the majority of the errors made by second language learners do not come from their first language, but they come from the learner internal origin. So interlanguage is language produced by learner. And the next is morpheme studies and the second language learning. As far as second language acquisition research is concerned, the most important empirical findings of this period were probably results of the so-called morpheme studies, and then question monitors models. There are five basic of the hypothesis. The first is the acquisition learning hypothesis, and the second one is the monitor hypothesis, and the third one is the order hypothesis, and then the fourth is the input hypothesis, and the last is the effective filters of hypothesis. And the last material is on the 1980s and beyond. By the mid of 1918, SLL research was no longer subordinate to the immediate practical requirements of curriculum planning and language pedagogy. Instead, it had matured into a much more autonomous field of inquiry, encompasses a number of substantial programs of research. Okay, I think that's all for this material. Thank you for your listening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.